my thing is just I think looking at it right away, the biggest thing you'd say is like obviously there's no LeBron. That would be the
No LeBron.
biggest omission that you'd see. But
Yeah.
it's not like offensive or anything to me. Like putting
No.
Kobe in over LeBron doesn't feel like LeBron's being wronged too much. Could you have fit him in somewhere else in the lineup? Like potentially, but who are you gonna slide out? Like are you sliding out Magic
I was about
Johnson
to make that
for
comment as well.
LeBron? Are you sliding out Tim
Ooh.
Duncan? Like those are tricky arguments to make, right? Because then you feel like
Yeah.
you're snubbing
I was
someone
going to
else.
say, if I were to slide anyone out of this lineup, just from what I'm looking at, obviously, I feel like you slide out Magic, but obviously there's going to be a lot of NBA fans, and just in general, who would say Kobe, and I totally get that. Personally, I feel like I'd slide out Magic, but then again, obviously Steph left LeBron off his list entirely. It is interesting. Obviously, the rivalry's been there for the last pretty much decade. It's interesting that he wouldn't put him on there because you'd think that it would give a guy like Curry more respect towards the greatness that obviously LeBron has, but obviously, like you said, not a very disrespectful list. And
Yeah.
one thing that I wanted to do here, because we haven't really done anything like this on this podcast, but I really wanted to give our top fives because I know that over the years, I know I'm more of an NBA fan than you are, but I feel like I've given probably 100 different ones because you every single time something like this comes up, you get asked if you're an NBA fan, what is your all-time top five? And at least for me, it feels like it changes either every couple months or every couple years. There's a couple of guys who stay consistent, don't get me wrong. But generally, like as you watch the game evolve and watch more guys more and obviously guys slide in, guys slide out. And that's the thing with something like this. When you're picking five players out of thousands, it's so tough that I feel like there's so many respectable options. If you want to go first with this one, because I feel like I'd rather go second for this. But if you want to go first, go right ahead.
In
If you're
terms
good to
of
go.
my overall lineup.
Yep. If you want to
Okay,
just throw it out
okay.
there.
Okay, I'm getting it. I'm still getting it together. I'm thinking
You're still getting it together?
it's a tricky thing to do, right? Because it's
Okay.
anytime you're
Do you want me to give
you're-
mine first?
No. I'll give mine. I'm pretty much ready. But
Okay.
I'll just say like anytime you are making a list like this, you feel like you're leaving someone out, right? Like
That's
you
how
feel
it
like
is.
you're snubbing
There's
someone
no
just by making the list.
there's absolutely no way that you could make it that you're not going to leave someone out. Because like even when I'm looking at Curry's, the thing is, and this is a spoiler, I'll say this, I also have Tim Duncan. But just I'm using that as an example. For that one, I feel like as from the power forward position, Tim Duncan is very, very much not controversial. Tim Duncan, best power forward of all time, you will not get an argument out of anybody. But then again, there's a little bit of me that wants to go, you could slide Dirk in there. You could slide Dirk. Dirk would be pretty cool in that spot. Or even you could move another center. Who knows? Maybe you want to slide Hakeem in there. Maybe you want to put Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You could throw a bunch of guys in there, and you wouldn't get a complaint out of me. I would not think that was strange that you left Duncan out, just because part of me, even though I do think Duncan is the greatest power forward of all time, it's not controversial to me if you want to throw another guy. Hell, we were talking about LeBron. If you replace LeBron with Duncan, I feel like I wouldn't necessarily be shaking my head at you. I'd be like, okay, I get it. Like, I get it, right? That's the thing. There's so many options that you can slide in there.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so too, and that is what makes it tricky. And I try to make my list. I have my list, and I tried to make it different than Curry's. There's some you have to repeat. I'm not leaving out Michael Jordan, but I'm
Yeah,
trying
fair.
to make it a little bit different. Just I don't know if it's necessarily gonna be the best team of all time if you go through all the possibilities. Like I'm sure you can find a better lineup.
So
But I think
you're
I
just
think
making
this
sure
would
to
be-
throw out the context that you were trying to avoid the
I'm
guys
trying
that you
to
already
avoid
chose.
using the same. No, I'm not like
Okay.
using it as a hard and fast rule, but I'm trying to make it a little
Okay.
bit different.
I can't say I did that, but I could definitely on the spot afterwards. I'll give one that's the same to try and beat this.
Yeah, so I'll throw out my picks. So I'll go For shooting guard, I'm gonna go Michael Jordan. That feels obvious. That I don't need to
Yep.
explain why.
No.
I can.
You shouldn't have put Michael Jordan.
And I shouldn't have put Michael Jordan on the all-time top 5.
How dare you?
Yeah, no.
Heresy.
But yeah, no, like that doesn't need any explanation. I'll move on. I do feel like it's a bit of a snub to not have LeBron on there because as dumb as I do think the argument is for between MJ and LeBron, I do think MJ's significantly better. I do think LeBron has fully cemented himself in that second best of all time conversation because you look at the longevity, you look at well, he hasn't has as much playoff success. He leads in every stat, and he's did have the misfortune of playing for some pretty bad Cavs teams out of the gate, and he didn't have some of that, especially early in his career. He didn't have some of that same supporting cast that MJ did in terms of looking at Scottie Pippen, looking at Dennis Rodman. So I do think it's important to have him in an all-time top 5, and well, like maybe Curry. Like I'm trying to think of reasons why Curry would have left him off his list. Maybe because you don't want to snub a guy like Kobe. Or any of the players that he put on there, but maybe he was trying to avoid players who are still playing. But I think if LeBron retired today, like he's fully cemented in that second best of all time conversation. So I think you have to put him there. About to sneeze. But yeah, I'll move on from that, and from here on we can start having conversation. I think for my picks.
Okay,
so for
I'm excited.
Center,
Let's hear it.
For center, I'm putting. Who did he put again? He put.
He put Shaq.
He put Shaq. Which obviously you can't argue with that, but I do think this is the one where there's the biggest room for debate, especially looking at some older players than Shaq. I think you have to look at a Bill Russell. I think you have to look at a Kareem.
Ooh.
But the ultimate way that I'm going with this is I'm going Wilt Chamberlain. And
okay, I kind of figured that's where you're gonna go. I won't fight with you on that because there's no point in fighting with you on that. It's not the choice I would have made, but I totally get it. Get it.
And
you can't. You will not find me arguing against the guy who scored 100 points in a game.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think that's what puts him over the top for me. It's just there's so many. Like if you look up some stats of Wilt Chamberlain, there's just like he was so much better than everybody else.
Maybe we should probably go down that rabbit hole. Maybe, and that deserves its own thing.
Yeah, because that's why I think if you put him in this lineup, well, it is like recency bias affects him in any of these lists because he played in an older era than pretty much anybody else you're going to see on these lists. But just because of how dominant he was, the fact that you can score 100 points in a basketball game, I don't care where you're playing. That's insane. Crazy. You just think of the picture of him holding up the piece of paper with 100 on it. Like that is Wilt Chamberlain, and I think that kind of dominance deserves a spot on my list.
I'm kind of surprised because I figured that we would be fighting on at least one of these, or I'd have an argument against them. While I can tell you right now, your list won't look a lot like mine. I don't disagree with yours at all. It's like I said before, like there are so many guys who can slide in that I won't fight you on it. I totally get it.
Yeah, here's where you might start disagreeing with me.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so I don't know how good of a case I can make for it either, but I'm... who do I need? So I need power forward. So you went with Tim Duncan. Obviously, great choice. I'm going to change that up a little bit and go... Because Tim Duncan, obviously, big... Obviously, very, very good.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to see here an argument from me. But I'm going to go with a guy who had a little bit less team success, a lot less team success, infamously a lot less team success, but overall still one of the greatest players of all time. I think I'm adding a great rebounder to this lineup, as is inherent in his nickname, and going to inject some personality into this team. I'm going with Charles Barkley.
Oh, that's not where I thought you were going. Okay. Okay.
Because I'm thinking...
Okay. I mean... I get it. Explain it.
I don't think that's that controversial to say, but like when I'm thinking of players who I need for this lineup, I'm wanting a guy like Barkley because we already have we already have big time scorers. We've got MJ, we've got LeBron, we've got Wilt. We're gonna put up points. I want the
Yeah.
guy who can grab the rebounds. I want a guy like Charles Barkley on my team to complement pieces like MJ, LeBron, and Chamberlain. I think that's something that would be important if I'm actually making this into a team, and I think he'd slide in really well there.
Yep. And like I said before, I don't necessarily. I wouldn't. I feel like that's the one that's the most controversial to me. Charles Barkley, by all means, legend. He is a great player. He's exactly what you need for that role. Like you said, he's a great defensive guy, great rebounder. If you can obviously, like you said before, you were trying to pick guys that Curry didn't have, and by that point, I totally get where you're coming from. There are a couple guys that I feel like I would have slid in that role before Barkley. Like I would have gone like Kevin Garnett. I feel like that's one that
Kevin
I would have
Garnett
slid in there.
over Barkley.
I'd say so. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd say so.
Okay.
Now I'm putting myself on the spot. I'm trying to think of a couple. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of really, really elite power forwards. Like I said, I mentioned Dirk before.
Yeah, I
I'm
was
going to
gonna
leave
say,
him out of
you
this
did
just
mention
because
Dirk.
I did mention Dirk. I'm going to leave him out of this just because he's not what you're looking for with that. Dirk was a scorer. He wasn't a
Yes,
rebounder.
like
He wasn't
he's-
necessarily athletic.
yeah.
He's not a defender. That immediately removes him from that list. As much as I love Dirk. If we were talking about all-time players that I love, Dirk would be my power forward, no question. But if for what you're looking for, you're going to get exactly that out of Barkley. And that's why I have no issue with that. Like the way that you backed it up, I have no argument against that. Obviously, Tim Duncan, that is exactly what you would be getting out of Duncan. That's why Duncan was so good at what he did. He was Mr. Fundamentals. He was perfect at that, right? He was a great defender, great rebounder. Exactly what the Spurs dynasty needed to win all those championships that they won. Obviously, you're not going to get as much out of Barkley, but you're still going to get a lot.
Yeah. And I think it's important to put that context in. True. Like I if I'm creating a lineup,
Yeah, for sure.
like I think that's where I'd slide in Barkley. And I think
And
my
which
last-
one have you not hit?
I haven't hit my point guard.
Okay.
So this one might be my most controversial because there's a lot of guys like I'm looking. Obviously,
Point guard's tough.
He picked Magic, which makes sense.
Yep.
One of the most I think of Magic Johnson. I just think it's the same thing. Like I think a common theme throughout Steph's list is just like dominance, especially like when I look at that team, I think it's like dominant, it imposed. Like if I'm going up against those guys, I feel the championship pedigree. I'm looking at the amount of championships. Obviously, MJ has won. I'm looking at the amount of championships Tim Duncan has won. Kobe, Shaq, Magic Johnson. Like they are proven winners. But I'm gonna put that a little bit to the side for my point guard, and I'm gonna go with a guy who, because again, we've got. I'm not necessarily saying like, I'm not getting another score because I am getting another score, but
Okay, I'm scared.
I'm putting in there a guy who, well, you're looking at dominance, and I already have a lot of that in the lineup. I'm thinking with MJ, LeBron, Wilt, like dominant, intimidating guys. I'm looking for somebody who I deem as electric, like a playmaker, somebody who gets the fans out of their seats. And when I think that, I think Allen Iverson.
Ooh, that's a good one. I wasn't even thinking of AI. Oh, you were scaring me. I thought you were going to say like Westbrook or something.
Oh no, I think Allen Iverson. And
You know what?
I think
You
that's
know what?
another one where I'm similar to Barkley. I'm thinking less along the lines of team success and just who is the kind of player, irregardless of how much they can carry a team, that I would want to complement my big time pieces. And I'm thinking Allen
For
Iverson.
sure. You will not get an argument on that because I love AI. I love the way he played. He would fit perfectly. He is the type of guy that you would have no issue from me. I personally, no issue with that. Okay. Now I'm excited to get into mine. Obviously, I think I'm going to give two here. So I'll quickly go through it because I want to do what you did. I want to try and make a lineup out of guys that Curry didn't pick. Just to kind of do the same thing you did. I didn't do that with my first one.
I'll spot you MJ. We'll spot you MJ though. Just to
Will spot me MJ?
Just to make it even, because I did that too. Unless you don't want to.
Sure.
Unless you don't want to.
Well, I'm thinking, because I'm gonna have to do it on the spot. But maybe, you know what? No, I don't need MJ. We'll be good. Maybe we'll see. I'll think about it. But anyway, my lineup for context. So I saw this article line and I instantly knew that this is what I wanted to do for the podcast. This was a segment that I thought would be perfect. I didn't open the article before I wrote my top 5 because I didn't want to get any inspiration for it. I just wanted to put my top 5 guys on a list and then compare it, right? So I wanted just completely blind who I would have if I needed to make a roster out of the top 5 guys that I think would work great together, right? So I'll move into it. I'll start at the same spot you did. Shooting guard, Jordan, 6-0 in the finals, greatest player of all time. Feel like I don't need to defend that one. Next, I'll move into center. Shaquille O'Neal. Same thing as Curry. Absolute most dominant center of all time. I feel like he's one of those guys who you can slide in this argument where, obviously, in the center spot, you're never going to get an argument out of anyone. He's one of those guys you could say Shaq, Hakeem, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, any of those guys, even Tim Duncan at center, I feel like you won't get an argument out of anybody. Power forward, already spoiled it. Tim Duncan. Feel like I've already made that argument. I wanted a defensive guy. I wanted a guy who could really help. Tim Duncan, Shaq in the post, you're not scoring on that. There is no way in hell. Small forward, I'm biased because I grew up watching this guy, Kobe Bryant, and then point guard Magic Johnson. So in total, I ended up choosing the exact same team as Stephen Curry. And I am not kidding. I had it written down. I don't, obviously I can't prove it, but I thought it was really funny just because of the whole. I'll give a second one now because I want to give a second one. I want to do the same thing you did because that's arguably a better idea. But if I were to throw 5 guys out there who I think would be the best lineup of all time, I completely agree with them. Obviously, like you said, keeping LeBron off, I just think on the standpoint of if you have Magic out there, you don't need another playmaker. That I didn't want to make that argument for Steph because I wanted to make that argument for myself because that's why I chose to keep LeBron off. I felt like it would be better to have another scorer out there. And having Jordan and Kobe on the same court would be absolutely bonkers. On the same team, obviously. They played against each other, but whatever, what have you. Now, if we're going to get into a lineup to beat this, I feel like it'd be very tough. Obviously, like I said, I'm trying to beat the same lineup that I would have picked. Point guard, Steph Curry. Not a hard choice there, obviously. I'll move into small forward, LeBron. He's the obvious next choice, so that leaves Steph Curry, LeBron. I feel like at power forward, you want a guy who's going to match up well against Tim Duncan. You want a guy, Tim Duncan, great post defender. You want a guy who's going to give him some trouble. Feel like you throw Kevin Durant out there maybe at power forward in that spot. Feel like that little bit of range would really give Duncan some issues. And then center, I feel like I said, you can slide in a couple guys. For the sake of Lakers, I'll throw Kareem in there. And then you said you'd give me Jordan. I don't think I'll take Jordan.
Okay.
Not because Jordan wouldn't be an instant upgrade to this guy. I feel like I'd probably slide. I feel like you could either say I'm fighting with myself only because you said AI, and I love the idea of throwing AI on a team like this. But I feel like I'd go Dwayne Wade. I really like Wade. Okay. I think he could fit. He's one of those guys where we've seen him be able to fit into star teams really well and just work around the other guys around him. That would be my lineup for that.
Okay. That feels like a very... It's
a very safe lineup.
You're definitely picking from an era. You're definitely picking from the era that I think we both would have grown up watching, right?
For sure.
Dwayne Wade and Curry and Durant. It's a very modern-ish lineup.
Modern.
Which I think would be interesting because I do think it's a stars of now generally versus again now-ish. Dwayne Wade isn't necessarily a star anymore.
True.
But now-ish is in the last 10-ish years, versus players who were obviously stars in the past. We're looking at Kobe being Kobe and Tim Duncan being the most current, but then you're looking at Jordan, Magic Johnson, Shaq, a little bit earlier.
Yep.
I think that would be a very interesting game to play.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be. The thing is, I think the team that I chose to try and beat this team that Curry brought up. Do I think it would beat it? No, probably not. Because like I said, I was choosing a team to be the best starting five of all time, and I ended up with the same one. Because that's just the thing. Like at least in my personal opinion, feel like you can't get more perfect than that. Obviously, like I said, you can slide in guys, slide out guys, and it would still end up around the same thing where you wouldn't get an argument out of me. But if you were to ask me what the perfect starting five is, it's right there. I don't think you wouldn't get an argument.